if you look at the 7-6, it shows a bar graph on crib scores. And you notice the longest bar on the graph? 2. So when you turn your crib over and it's 2, how many times do you say 2? 2. 2. Yeah. 2 is the most frequent. 2 is the most frequent score in the crib. So when you start putting this on a graph, 2 is the longest bar. And of course, as you can see on this graph, most cribs run from 2 to 6. About 70% of all cribs are between 2 and 6 points. How many of you can think of a time when you played 9 games and you didn't have a crib over 8? Oh, and see, in 9 games is probably 45 cribs. And sometimes, yeah, you won't have over 8. Any one of the 9 games, no crib over 8. You're saying 0 or 2, 0 or 2, 3 out of 4 times. What this theory of 26 and what we get into next week is going to try to convince you as to where you are on the board in terms of playing offensively and defensively. It's where I am on the board that determines how I lay my cards down on the table. It's where I am on the board that determines what kind of a discard I make to my opponent's crib or mine. If I like where I am, I play defensive to protect my advantage. If I don't like where I am, I play more offensively in order to gain some ground, if possible. Of course, I can tell by the sour faces that oftentimes that backfires. When you're forced to take risks, seems like quite often it backfires. But that's what the board position tells you got to do, is pick up some ground, so you go for it. A couple questions here that would relate to board position. If you really needed more than a 15 and you were holding a 1-4-5 with a 10-point card, then you might consider leading to 1 because it keeps the 4-5 intact, and you might possibly get a run in the play by keeping those 2 intact. If you like where you are, lead to 4. You get the 15. If the person's got 10-point cards with a 5, you'll get the 15. But let board position decide that for you. This kind of shows how it works. 10 plus 2 as the non-dealer plus 16.2 as the dealer equals 26.4. So if you were looking at where the dealer should be at the end of deal 2, should be hole 26. If you're looking at where it should be at the end of deal 4, 52. If you're looking at where it should be at the end of deal 6, it's 78. Deal 8, 104. So on. You see, these are all, between the first one there's 10, and between the rest of them there's 16, 10, 16, 10, 16, because that's what it is for dealing and non-dealing, 16, 10, 10, 16. There is one thing I want to mention, because I'm not sure that this is covered in this material very well, and in the book that's circulating either. The dealer should not be nervous on the first hand. Whoever wins that opening crib should not be nervous if they only have a combined total of 7 points. they have a 50% chance of winning if they have 7 points. So don't get reckless. The time to get reckless as a dealer is when you had to put garbage in your crib, but you got no help on the cut and you got a 2-point hand. Then you need to go after some pegs. So the non-dealer must play offense. If you don't win the crib on the first deal, you've got to play offensively. If you've ever played the Lynn Culvert, you'll know that he pairs everything if he doesn't have the opening deal. Everything that hits the table, he's going to score on it. As the dealer, you should play defensive. You should try to stay away from the pegs. And by that, just give you a pretty clear example of that. Let's say if it's the opening hand of the game, you won the crib, and your opponent leads a 10. You've got a choice of putting a 5 or a 6 on it. Put the 6. And then play the 5 on the other end when they make the count 26. Otherwise, what you'll do is trade points. Most of the time, you just trade points. This way, you get 2 and they get 0. Okay? So you're playing, if you're dealing the first hand, the crib is in front of you, you are playing to protect your advantage. You have an advantage from the get-go. Don't let it get away yet. Try not to let it get away at all. But don't give it away on the first hand of the game. Don't worry about balking the crib on the opening deal. Keep your points. By balking the crib, we mean defensive. You might have a hand like a 1, 6, 7, 8, 9 with a king. Well, you're not giving up much if you throw the king 9, right? You still got 7. Don't do it there. First hand of the game, go for all you can. Sometimes and don't assume that 12 is enough. Let's say you hold a little double run like 3, 3, 2, 4, and you get a 12-point cut, which is a whole lot of cards are going to give you 12. Go for some pegs. Probably if you're holding 2 3s, the 3 is still the lead, but take pegs. Take pegs wherever you can. Don't feel smug in having 12, because if you get 16, you might take the dealer's advantage away on the opening hand of the game. Much better to do it then than try to catch up on 4th Street. 4th Street is the toughest place in the world to peg, to get a good crib score, anything else. The quicker you can gain the advantage in the game, the easier it is. Much easier on first. If you're the non-dealer, you don't have the crib, you take the pairs, the runs, the 15-2s, speed the game, grab whatever you can, and keep grabbing it until you like where you are. Don't do it one hand and then go backwards on 2. Keep after it. The dealers, I mentioned the dealer playing the 6 on a 10 lead and then putting the 5 on 31. There are other plays that come up that the dealer would want to stay away from that would look like they'd be reasonably safe. Take safe pairs, close the count. If it's out near the end of the line and you can pair an 8 for 24, pair it. But don't pair it for 23. Okay. The dealer's purpose, really, is to slow the game down. And the non-dealer, the opening crib, the loser of the cut, purpose is to speed it up.